Hi all, thanks for joining me again for the video that goes through all the scripts. It's going to be a long video, but just dip in and out of it when you need to find out how you want to use any particular one script. I'm not going to have time to separate the video into chapters. I literally have to leave for hospital pretty much within an hour or two of finishing this video. But when I upload the video, it can potentially try to maybe automate the process of chapters, I think. So I'll just let YouTube do its thing. But anyway, we'll just get straight on. So again, this video is not going to be polished, so there might be some errors, slip-ups. Just bear with me. It's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. You may not want to use every script in here, but there will, I'm sure, I'm 99% certain there will be something in here you will love to use. As I say in the previous video, it is Windows only, unfortunately. Sorry for Mac users. But Mac users can't have AutoHotkey. So yeah, download AutoHotkey version 1. I explain about AutoHotkey here within the download in the zip. Just to reiterate dead quick, there's a link in the description to this video and in a comment to get this folder here as a zip. Once you've extracted the zip file, you can enter it and then read up about AutoHotkey here. If you're new to it, do not panic. You don't need to know coding to use these files. Yeah, let's get straight into it. So the last video did show you about this folder, but this video we're going to be concentrating on the main bulk of the scripts, which is in this folder. And the last video showed you how to get all these tools, the scripts, which are the tools, to open up when FL Studio opens. And then there's alternative files in this folder to swap out certain files here because they do things slightly different and you might prefer one over the other. So we'll potentially talk about that as well. But as long as we cover the ones in here, then that should really cover most in here anyway, because in here there is little text documents for all of them. Any alternative scripts, there is text documents telling you what the difference is between the versions. It doesn't necessarily tell you how to use the script. It just tells you the differences between this version in the alternatives folder and the versions in the current startup folder. But this video will go into the more how to use the individual scripts. So we might cover some in the alternatives, but my main job today, right now, is covering these in here. So I am just going to do a search of all the AutoHotkey things so we can just have a list in one window. Okay. So just let's start. Instead, I'm not going to start with this one actually, because I want to start with this one and you'll see why. So this is channel rack grid lines. So if I go into FL Studio, I've already opened FL, so the scripts have loaded. And as you can see, when I clicked on the channel rack, I get these lines showing up. If I click on the toolbar here, you see that the lines disappear. And that's because this script is just coded for when you're active within the channel rack. And it's just a visual GUI to help you with splitting up the bars. You can personalize this so it happens after every beat. I mean, God forbid, but even after every step. I can't imagine anyone wanting to do that, but you can do. You can have a line at the very start here, if you so wished. But obviously, because it's the very start, I already know this is the first bar. So that's why I didn't put one there. And then I put one after every other bar. Now, obviously, your monitor is going to be different. Your channel rack, the sizing will be different. You do need a detached window. So just quickly go here, in how to use AutoHotkey scripts, it does tell you about detached windows, that a lot of the scripts will need detached windows. Not all of them, but a lot will. And if you do not want to, categorically do not want to use detached windows, then that's obviously up to you. But a lot of these scripts won't work if you don't use detached windows. But some scripts will work without detached windows, but most require them. And detached windows is when you go to each window, so the channel rack, for example, now, but the same options in the playlist, the mixer apply. And there is a detached option here. And what that means is basically it treats this window as like an alternative program, if you will. So the script can find it. Without doing that, the script can't know this window exists. And it also means detached windows can be dragged to any other monitor. They can be dragged over the toolbar. So if we just maximize this, it covers the toolbar, that kind of thing. And that might not be what you want. So that's completely fair enough. I'm just saying, you know, detached windows are very crucial to these tools. You might just want the playlist attached and not the channel rack, and that's okay. You could still then use the playlist scripts, playlist tools, but not the channel rack ones. So it's up to you, but obviously just be aware of that. But assuming, you know, you're detached as well, you can use this channel rack grid lines. And it's, as I said, it's just a visual reference. If you go to the playlist, obviously those lines disappear. It's only when you're actually active and the window's actually focused. So we go to toolbar, and that's grayed out. It's not active. So once we focus and active that window, it shows up. Now, I have coded this, so the color of this line automatically finds the complementary opposite color of your FL Studio theme, but it references this gray color here by a pixel area. And I'll cover that in the settings. But basically, you choose a coordinate on your screen that represents wherever on the screen you want. But I've chose like just an area like here of this grey. And then these grid lines are always the complementary colour of this grey, so that they stand out. And this like greyish colour here will change if you change the theme setting. But the code will also then change these lines to be the complementary colour. And if I go to themes, you'll see these lines show up through the settings window. And I've coded that on purpose. This is like, so as I say, they don't show up, say if you're on a playlist, the mixer, they'll disappear, but I purposely scripted it so that they will show up through this settings window. That's so that when you're doing themes, you can still see the lines if this settings window is over the lines. So that's why the lines show through. So if we just change some colours, let's change to a greeny colour now. Let's change to like a more orange. It changes to a complementary colour. But you can override that and choose whatever colour you want for these lines. And also, if you have a maximised window like this, then these lines will be in slightly different places because the border of the channel rack changes. So the window dimensions, even though they're very similar to a restored window that a user set size, they are actually still different. So therefore, the script needs to know slightly different positions to set them up. And then this is where the settings come in. So for this script, you don't have to go into the actual script file. What you do, you press Control, Alt, and L, and it brings up this menu. This is the menu you need to use to change all the settings you need for this script. So line count, pretty self-explanatory, sets how many lines there's going to be visible. So there's a maximum of 1. So if we set this to 0, it'll still show 1. but you can set it from 1 upwards to whatever you want. So we changed it to 2, as you can see. And because of my channel rack, the size that is, because for example, you might only have your channel rack like this size, so you'd only need, in this scenario, 2 lines, or even 1 would do, because it'll still split up first bar and the second bar. But as I say, you can code it so that it starts on beats, which I'll show you now. But it is completely flexible. But I need 4 lines to cover how long I keep my channel rack, because it's 2, 3, 4 bars, and then a little bit of the 5th bar there is always visible in my channel rack. The line spacing is how you choose if it's going to, what space it's going to cover. So 512 pixels covers a bar width for me. So I'm going to remember this number 512, but if I change this, you'll see obviously the spacing changes. Excuse me. You might hear that a lot. Dry throat. This is how you can set it to bars, beats, even steps, however you wish. And this will just take a bit of playing around with. And then once it's done, and you exit, it's saved to a .ini file that sits in the same folder as this script, this tool. So always leave the .ini files where they are, please. Even if you want to remove the actual files to the alternative folder for now, then do that, because I'll just show you. Say, for example, let's just set that back to 512 a sec. The lines will show, by the way, whilst this window is open as well. So don't worry, it won't show over your windows normally. See, once I've exited, it goes off. So yeah, say for example, you didn't want this channel rack grid lines tool opening up when FL starts, then you would cut it from the startup folder, and you would go into the alternative files, and then go into whichever folder. This is the same folder that it was in. So, for example, in the startup folder, settings needed via inbuilt options. That's where this tool resides, channel grid lines. So say you cut that so it doesn't start up with FL, then just put it in the alternative folder and in the same folder, settings needed via inbuilt options. And that way it's for safekeeping there, but it won't start up with FL. The last video showed you how to get them to start up. Let's go back to that. So we'll just open up those settings again. So Control Alt and L. And you might be able to access them from the actual script. And I've just remembered that they're not. So on some scripts, when you go to the icon in the system tray, some scripts I've coded so that the settings for them are on a right-click menu of the script. But this particular script, the grid lines, is not got options in here. So as I say, it's Control Alt and L when you're focused on the channel rack. So let's get back to where we're up to. So we've done line spacing and the amount. So this non-max first line X, what does that mean? So that means when the window is not maximized, like now, when it's in your user set size, X means the horizontal coordinate of a screen or a window, so this way, and the Y is always the vertical coordinate of a screen or a window, so obviously up and down like this. So what this is saying is, where do the lines, where does the very first line start? So as I say, this line is not starting at the start of the bar. It's up to the next bar. And this is the number that decides that. Where on the horizontal axis of the channel rack is the line going to start for a user set size window. And then if we change that just to show you, so we've got 1448, I'll just copy that to remember. We change this. You'll see the obviously the shifts across. So let's change that to say 60. You'll see it slightly adjusts, and you want it in this little grey area in between the steps. So that's why you'll just need to play around with it for your screen. See, you can see it moving, and you want to just get it where you want to get it. So you might want it to start here after the very first beat, and then you use the line spacing and the amount to then get them to go across to all the other beats. And then we have the exact same setting as this, but for a maximized window, and that is here. Because as I said, it's going to be slightly shifted differently. I personally found that the maximized window, you need to take off 8 pixels from whatever this number is here. But yours might be different. So as I say, if we maximize this window, the dimensions of the channel rack are actually slightly different, proportions and stuff, because of the borders disappearing here. So you need to then do this number here to get that first line to go where you want for a maximized window. And then the non-max Y offset, that sets the actual what's something to do with the height here. So we'll just change this. It chooses where these lines finish. You might want them to finish down here, but I wanted them to finish just here. And I found that for me, 60 is the right number. Yours will be probably different, potentially the same, but potentially different because you've got different dimensions. And again, when you've got a maximized window, that will look different. So you have to adjust here. And again, I found that if I take 8 pixels off, then that worked. So for me, 52 worked with a maximized channel rack. And then let's see what's next. Yes, so a slight correction, sorry, show. This non-maximized window Y offset actually chooses where the very top of here starts in relation to the channel rack. So I've done it so that it starts just here after the header, but you can have it start up here. So like if I reduce this, say to 55, don't worry about that. Yeah, unfortunately that error comes up if I take some of these boxes to 0, removed all the numbers. That's something I need to sort in the script, but I've not got time, so don't panic too much. If that happens, you'll have to just double restart the script. So go to your folder and find it and double click it, and then just restart this. But you have to try and edit this so that it doesn't take all the numbers away. So instead of like, see if I go to 6, but if I take the 6 off now, it'll give me an error. So put the other numbers that you want, and then maybe go move the cursor along to delete the first number. Just because there is that is an error in the script. Some of them will give that if you go to 0. So this was 61, so we'll put 60 and then delete these other numbers there. You can actually have 0, and that's okay. But if you remove that 0, it'll give you an error. Some of the boxes don't do that, and some do. And I need to change the script, but I say I've not got time. But it's not a big thing because as soon as you set this, you're done. So as I say, non-max Y offset sets where you want it to start down from the top, and then max Y offset, maximized Y offset is the same, but for the maximized window. And then non-maximized height is how long these lines are. So chooses, where it's going to end here. So if we change that, you can see it starts to go longer here at the bottom. But I wanted it just touching this bit here. And then again, you've got the same for the maximized height. So for when you've got a maximized window, how long you want these lines to be. Okay, and then this auto complementary color pixel X and pixel Y, these are the location coordinates. If we're in the FL window here, you would like the complementary color of these lines to be based on. So as I say, I wanted it to be based on this gray of the channel rack, but because you're going to have other channels down here in projects, I've done a pixel area around here because I know that'll always be empty and showing this particular gray. You could choose up here in the header or anywhere else that you'd like a complementary color based on. And what you want to do for that is you want to open up something called a channel spy, which is what you get with AutoHotkey. You get this. And a lot of the scripts can be right click from here. And then you can choose Windows Spy and it'll open up this here. And this allows you to show you what pixel location you're at. And you want to make sure you've clicked into the channel rack when you do this, so the channel rack is actually highlighted. And then go to the area you want. Say, for example, we go here. And if you look in the Windows Spy, it's got mouse position and shows your screen coordinates and window coordinates. The screen coordinates are for the entire screen, regardless of what window is currently active, whereas the window coordinates are the individual coordinates of that window. Even if you move that window, say, into the middle of the screen, it'll still have its own proportion that'll still stay the same. So it'll have its own internal location of that window, whereas the screen is just the entire screen. So you want to just choose the coordinate location. I think it's the window coordinates for this script that you want. So for example here, 30, the first number that it shows is always the X coordinate, which is the horizontal, and the second number after the dash is always the Y coordinate. So that's obviously vertical going down. So for example, if we wanted this location where my cursor is, as I say, make sure you've clicked to the channel rack to focus it. Because if we click here, for example, this is a different window now. So it's going to give us different coordinates. Even if you hovered over the channel rack, you want to actually click it, because it often changes the coordinates correctly then. And then, as I say, if this was what we were going to do, we would see window 27 and 75. So the 27 is the X and the 75 is the Y. So then you'd go back to the settings and you'd choose here 75 or whatever it was for the X, and then you'd do the Y here. Obviously, the Windows Spy is now showing us the coordinates for this window. So as I say, anytime you want to change it, channel rack, just click it just to make sure it's highlighted. And then wherever you want your cursor to go, 25, 71. Then you do 25 here, 71 here. And that's how you set where the complementary color is going to be based on. And then in this box here is where you put your color hex codes to change the line. So let's just say, let's use this color wheel here. Let's say we wanted this bright green, and we'll copy this hex code here. So then if we enter this code, it recognizes proper hex codes. Excuse me. So Control Alt L, settings. If we put that hex code in here, as you can see, it changes now to a nice bright green, whatever you want. And that will override the complementary color. But if you want the complementary color, then keep this box here blank. And that's how you use this particular script. So there was a bit of information there about scripts in general. So what I'll do, I'll save this as an individual video for the channel at Grid Lines. And then we'll continue on to the next one and keep seeing how far we get.